broadly. All right. Oh, there's another one. Sir, kind sir.
When I was a kid, I used to eat wild strawberries from my lawn. If you don't know, they're these tiny little plants with a single small strawberry on the end. I ate them all the time, and they tasted great. Until one day, my mom saw me eating one, and she smacked it out of my hand and told me never to eat it again. She said they were poisonous, but I knew they weren't. I'd eaten them before, and I was totally okay. In reality, it turns out they were poisonous because they were covered in pesticides and fertilizers. We loved keeping our lawn green, and so we use a lot of pesticides and fertilizers to do that. Now, lawns are seen as a symbol of civilization. They separate us from nature, and they keep our civilization looking clean and organized, according to Annie Sneed in her 2019 Scientific American article. I also used to have a landscaping job, so I've got a lot of experience putting fertilizers on lawns and mowing them, all that wonderful stuff. That isn't really all that wonderful. Lawns are extremely common in America and many other Western societies, but they come at a large cost with a lot of important side effects. Fortunately, there is a solution to this problem that can help alleviate many or all of these side effects. Now you may wonder, are lawns really all that common? Well, what do you think the most commonly grown crop in the United States is? Believe it or not, it's not corn, it's not wheat, it's not soy, and it's not common. According to Jay Blaka in his 2007 article, Lawns, the most common crop in the United States is turf grass, the stuff that lawns are made of. Now, these lawns come with a number of side effects. Pesticides, such as Roundup, the most common pesticide used in the United States, was determined to be very likely to be carcinogenic to humans, according to the International Agency for Research on Cancer in their 2019 monograph on glyphosate. Pesticides also linger in the soil for up to 6 months and can enter our drinking water, according to Jay Wargo in his 2009 book, Green Intelligence. Lawns also cause the other problem of fertilizer runoff. If you go to Laguna Lake, which is just down Madonna Road here in SLO, you'll notice that there are a bunch of signs posted telling you not to swim, drink, or be near the water in the lake because there's a toxic algal bloom perpetually in that lake. Another example of an algal bloom is the red tide in Florida. According to Ryan Balog in his 2019 Miami Herald article, fertilizer runoff is absolutely the cause of red tide that costs Florida so much economic output and its tourism industry. According to the Woodsville Oceanographic Institute, in their 2016 article, Economic Impact, algal blooms caused by fertilizer runoff cost the United States $50 million every single year. Lawns also cause an insane amount of pollution. According to Evan Eisenberg in his 2001 article, The Case for Blacktop, 1 hour of mowing your lawn produces as much pollution as 350 miles of driving your car. Not only that, but all that pollution is concentrated directly in your backyard instead of across 350 miles of highway. So you, your neighbors, your children, and their children will all be breathing those nasty pollutants in. Lawns also hurt biodiversity, according to Nicholas Giener in his 2013 article in Landscape and Urban Planning. Lawns usually consist of only 1 or 2 different organisms, the grass, whereas in nature you see a vast amount of trees, small plants, shrubs, and wildflowers that would instead take the place of the lawn. Not only that, but 50 to 70% of household water use is used to water lawns. That's more than the total amount you use for necessary functions like hygiene and toilets, and even for drinking water and cooking. Fortunately, there's a solution to this madness. If we plant native plants instead of non-native grasses, we'll be able to not only have more beautiful lawns, because we'll have a wide variety of wildflowers and different ground cover crops, but they'll also be able to grow without human intervention. Native plants, as you can see outside, have grown without fertilizers, without pesticides, and without outside watering for millions of years, far longer than humans have ever come here. And they can continue to do so for millions more without our help. Another question I wanted to ask is, why do we constrain flowers to beds? We could instead put those native flowers all across the grass and have a wide spectrum of different colors, reds, blues, greens, purples, and whites, all across the lawn, rather than having a single homogeneous green lawn. If we don't stop planting lawns everywhere, places like Laguna Lake and Florida will remain a cesspool covered in toxic algae that kills the local wildlife and prevents us from enjoying these natural resources. Not only that, we'll continue to waste massive amounts of precious water resources. In a state like California, using 50 to 70% of your household water doesn't make any sense at all, considering the likelihood of another 5 or 7 year drought and that we never know when it could happen next. Imagine if crops or even people started dying because of a lack of water, because we squandered all our water resources keeping our grass green. Fortunately, if we do plant native plants, there's a much brighter future. We'll all save a ton of water, which is great because we'll save tons of money. Personally, my water bill in my house of 4 people costs about $150 a month. So saving any of that water would be a huge help to me because it would save me a lot of money, of course. Not only that, we'd be able to have beautiful, diverse gardens. Rather than just having one crop across our whole garden, we could have maybe 50 or even 100 different plants growing in that same space. This would allow us to have more variety not only in the plants, but also the animals that live there. Bees and hummingbirds are really cute and beautiful to see, and they need flowers that are brightly colored in order to pollinate and feed. Not only that, but we'll have a constantly changing dynamic garden if we use native plants. If you look outside throughout the seasons, the grasses and trees are constantly changing colors and shapes based on the weather outside. And so if we plant them in our gardens, the same thing will happen, and the garden won't look the same from one day to the next. Now you may wonder, what can you do to stop this nonsense of having lawns everywhere? Well, if you have a lawn, the obvious solution is to replace it. Dig it up, plant native plants there instead, and you'll have a low-maintenance, low-cost garden with a lot more texture and a lot more color. If you don't have a lawn, you still live on campus, maybe you should write a complaint letter to President Armstrong. If you've ever been on Dexter Lawn in the summer, you can see the sprinklers always spraying around like 2 o'clock when the sun is at its highest and it's hottest in the day. So half of that water ends up getting wasted, and the other half ends up right in the walkway, where it's really inconvenient and annoying. If none of that floats your boat, maybe just save it for later. Maybe in the future, someday you'll own a house, and if you keep this in the back of your mind, maybe you'll remember that instead of having your lawn and wasting your water and money on that lawn, you can just plant a native lawn instead. Now, lawns have tons of problems, but fortunately, we can use native plants to create the less boring, low-maintenance, low-cost, more environmentally friendly lawn of the future. This whole time, we've been trying to separate ourselves from nature, when in reality, the best thing to do was to bring that nature right to our front doors. Thank you.
Okay. Luke's, how'd it go?
I think it went pretty well. There were like a few times I tripped up, but it wasn't nothing catastrophic, and I got down everything I needed to say, and I think I actually did it in the time limit this time.
Yeah, you're right there. Okay. Alrighty. Teammates, if you can give some more feedback real quick.
You definitely had like a lot of resources and side resources as well, so it was easy to tell what you were talking about.
I feel like over the course of